And I think that we are live. And welcome everyone to our another episode of Living Purpose. We have been doing such a fantastic job here, and on today we've had such great guests, and I am excited to have my friend here with me, uh, Miss Sonia. Oops, pause that. But I am so happy to have with me my friend Miss Sonia Thomas. Are you able to hear me okay, Sonia?
Yes, sounds a little muffled, just a heads up.
Hold on just a second to make sure that we can hear each other. It's fine. All right. I'm getting an echo, so give me a second and let's see. All right. I feel like I'm getting a feedback. So hold on just a second.
No worries.
I see what's happening here. There we go. Ah, okay. Now I don't think I have any more echoes. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. So, again, let's start over. I am here. I am here with my friend, Miss Sonia Thomas. Sonia, tell everyone about you and who you are, what you do.
Sure. Hi, KM. It's so great to be here with you. So, a little bit of background about me is my name is Sonia Thomas. Like you said, I'm originally from New York, so you will probably hear some sort of accent. And I have actually been in corporate America for a little over 20 years, started working actually in investment banking as a trader for a while, and then moved into working in audit and finance, and eventually made a career into business operations and commercial strategy. And so that's what I've been doing for a little bit and launching new drugs and medications for people with rare disease. So that's just a little bit of background about me, KM.
Well, I am excited about this conversation because you've done so much in corporate, and then you have the things that are going on in your personal life and in your I won't call it a side hustle because it's an actual business that you have going on. And
Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit more about um how you work in the corporate world, also have your business. Tell us a little bit more about how all of that is working together. And then I want you to we'll sprinkle in some faith later, but
Absolutely.
I want to hear about that.
Absolutely. So, you kind of segued nicely. Is that yes, I work in corporate America, but I also do run two businesses, and both of them that I do run with my husband. So, we actually do have a consulting business that really centers around commercial real estate, and he is the one that manages that one, and I am his his accessory piece that supports him in that business. But then I also have a creative side, which I've had this business for well over like almost 25 years, which I feel like I'm aging myself. But I am in the planning and event business as well. And so I've been doing events and weddings for little over 20, 25 years. I started as a hustle, you can say, back in my late teens, early 20s, and decided that this is something that I love to do. And I think it works sort of both sides of my brain because I have an analytic side and a strategic side, but I'm able to actually merge both of them together into something that I find to be very creative. So I really enjoy both sides of that coin, to say the least.
I think that people sometimes stifle one and never work the other. When I think it's important when we embrace both, right? Like if you have,
Yes.
'cause I'm the same. I'm the same. I'm very analytical and I can be in a zone. And most people, if they know me one way or the other, they may know my analytical side or they may know my creative side. But when they see both, they're like, wait a minute, who is this person?
Yes. Yes. Or my accountant said that she's like, you use both sides of your brain. And I said, well, I try. And I think, you know what it is? Because it gives me life. It really gives me a sense of purpose, and I just enjoy it. And I think that that's what it is that I'm doing something on both ends that I really enjoy, and it's worked out. I will tell you, it's not easy with work-life balance, but we've really learned to identify how many events we can do a year, where we are very thoughtful about that, really making that work around like our schedules, where I don't sacrifice my full-time corporate position, but really I'm able to really dedicate that time and that effort, which I think is really important, because it's not only about, oh, I need to make that cash, but it's really about, at the end of the day, is the quality and the service that you're giving and who you're working for at the end. So it's definitely a fine balance, but I think it's really about fueling something that I really enjoy on the side.
You said something really important. You said it's not just about cash. You said that, you select which jobs that you'll take. And I think that even if we are growing a business, we should still be the same way, right? We should be very selective in what we take so that we're not overwhelming ourselves and doing a lot of things that may be outside of that, I guess, unspoken balance. And I say it like that because oddly enough, I'm giving a talk on work-life balance in a couple of weeks. But but we talk about work-life balance, but truly, if you're running two businesses outside of working in the corporate industry, you've got to have some type of balance because how long have you been married?
Oh, I've been married for about 4 years now, so
Okay, see, and so you had time to meet him and date and all of that and get married yourself. So there's gotta be some type of balance in that. And I'm curious, so how would you say that as you've navigated through, like, having the business, working in corporate, getting married, let's throw that in there,
Mhm.
how would you say that your faith has played a role in it? And how would you say that there are some areas that you've done it really well, or, how would you
Or
speak
not
to
so well. Yes, so it's a really great question, because I think I've tried, and I can't tell you that I'm always perfect, so I'm always honest about that, is that you really try to be intentional about what you do, and I think self-awareness is really key as well. So, we have to understand, right, as we run a business, what oh, Cam, if you're still there, I will continue.
No, I'm still here,
Are
keep
you sure? Okay. I was like, "You disappeared." Sorry. So, I think it's that we need to be very intentional about what we do and what we spend our time with, and it's also about the self-awareness piece of it as well. So, when you think about it, it's that you can take on all the clientele that you want for your business, and you can make a lot of efforts, but sometimes you have to wonder, are they qualified efforts that you're making? But in addition to that, it's really also about the self-awareness of what you can take on. And third, it's about who you take on as well, right? Because just because every client is there doesn't necessarily mean that it will be profitable. And when I say profitable, I don't only mean it monetarily wise, but for your well-being as well. And I think that that's really huge. And there have been times that I have done that wrong. I have taken on clients when I know I am in a very stressful, high time season of my corporate job, where a client is actually not very profitable to me mentally, physically, or emotionally. Sometimes they ask for too much, and I cannot be able to provide that to them in the quality that I want, plus maintain and sustain my personal and my corporate life balance. So I think, it's also a level set as well, and self-awareness of what you really can handle, and that every time when a client is interviewing us, we are also interviewing them,
Yes.
right?
And it's funny too because a lot of times the client will make you feel like they're the ones interviewing you when you're really, like you said, you're really interviewing them. There's been plenty of times where I think in the past in my life where I've actually just went after the money. It's
Mhm,
like, oh, I
mhm.
need the money, I need this client. I'm just trying to hit numbers. But then there came a time where even though I may have needed the money, I took a step back and said, all of the things you're saying, like, wait a minute, but oh gosh, this client's costing me a lot of headache. You know,
Yes.
maybe I don't really want them.
And you're like, there's not enough money for this. to
Right,
deal with
right.
it. And I've
Like,
had that regret sometimes because I haven't said no. That now I'm putting in all this effort. And then if you're a numbers person like I am, you're like quantifying the number of hours times how much I'm getting. And you're like, I am probably making below minimum wage right now.
right.
And you're just like, is it for what effort am I getting out of it? Like, what am I getting out of it except more stress? So I think that's like prudent judgment. I think there's also a point of almost like you have to walk in faith, right? When you run a business, even if you're in corporate America, like there is a faith aspect that's 100-fold, because sometimes we're running after the wrong things. And because we run after the wrong things, sometimes there's not a blessing associated to it. It's
Hmm.
more of a stress that's associated to it. So I think sometimes when we have to take a step back and we say, okay, Lord, like I really trust that you're asking me to be in this business and you're going to give me the right clientele and they are going to be good for my business and for me as well, And it's not to say, I mean, I don't want anyone to think that just because you get a client, you're not going to have stress. That comes with the territory, but there is a level of just cognitive understanding that this client is a good fit, right? And if we say that in that way, that they were a good fit for my business and for me as a person as well, right? So I think it kind of goes both ways.
You know, it's really important what you said, taking a step back, asking the Lord
Mhm.
whether or not this is the right person. Because when I think about it, when you are in business, first of all, we're in business because God has allowed us to be in that business. He's given us the idea, He's given us the strategy, He's given us the plan. And
Mhm.
so, whenever we go down that path, we should ask Him to lead, guide, and direct us. So, we have to be honest. Is this, Lord, is this client the one that you would have us to connect with? Because, like you said, it's either going to be a blessing or a stressing. I just added
I love that.
that. But, because and if it's something that God has blessed, recently I have been talking to someone and I had told them that oftentimes what God does for us is not for right now, it's for
Mhm.
down the road.
Yeah.
But we have to take that step for the right now. And we may not get the benefit right now, but He knows what He's doing because He's aligning connections, He's aligning possibilities, open doors, and so forth and so on. And so we may not see it, but He does. And so
Yeah.
I like that you said that, like, we have to, you have to see whether or not this is what God would have for us. So speaking of God, how, how would you say that your faith has helped you to navigate uh, just the simple fact that you're in business and you have business now? So what are you doing? Because I know we had a great conversation about this at PurposeCon. So
Mhm.
I'm really excited, to hear what you have to add. But what are you what would you attribute to you having gotten to where you are now? Because you have a big title, you have a lot going on, you've made a lot of you've had a lot of accomplishments in your career.
And I think to that question, it's such a loaded and beautiful question to ask. Like, what do you think attributed to it? I think it's really putting God first. And that's extremely important to me, is that every decision, as long as I can remember, it was, I need you to confirm, Lord, if this is where you want me to be. And I think that's submission alone, to know that it's not about pleasing my own flesh, because that's really easy to do. Like, Cam, it's so easy, like in corporate America, to be like, I don't like this job, I'm going to go to the next job. And guess what? They're going to offer me X number grand more, etc. But to really say, Lord, like, is this what you want me to do? And is this where you want me to go? I think it's that obedience is so much better than the sacrifice. And that is something so hard to learn, because, and I know I've shared this before, but I have been in full-time roles and I had decided to like be an intern like 2 years into my career. So you go from making like almost a six-figure salary to like not making that, and really going on a limb to say, I just really feel called that God is asking me to take this step back and really, really test my faith. It really tested my faith to say, okay, can I really trust God if He's going to ask me to do something that seems so unreal to my logical senses right now? And I think that there's always been those opportunities. Go ahead, you were going to say
Well,
something.
no, I was going to say those logical senses.
Yes. And I know you shared this, but it's like, don't sacrifice your obedience on the altar of human understanding. And I think that that's like so huge. When I had heard that line, it really struck me, because how many times God is asking us to be obedient, but because logically we cannot process that idea, that means we would rather sacrifice that on an altar of human understanding. And sometimes our understanding is wrong, because we all, regardless of what we say, including myself, is like we have tunnel vision. I see how it affects me today,
Right.
not what it's going to do for me in the future. And that's what God's focused on. He's like, your decision today affects what you're going to do in the future. So I'm just asking for your humility, really, at the end of the day, to say yes. So I would really attribute that. That's first and foremost, is that every job I've ever taken, every decision, especially when it came to that, it's always been around like, are you really sure that you want me to do this? And really asking for those confirmations. Um,
He says that to lean not to our own understanding. And he also tells us that his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. And so I think sometimes we get lost in
yes.
thinking that we know best. Um,
Hmm.
especially when it pertains to us. Well, I know myself, and so I
Yeah.
know what's best for me, and I know what I'm dealing with. But a long time ago, I heard someone say well, I guess at this point, I don't have to say I heard someone say it because I've been saying this a lot. But so I'm just gonna take it for myself now. But no, but when whatever we do today, uh, basically, I've always looked back and said where my life is today is a reflection of what I did 6 months ago. And if
Mm,
you think about that, whatever God is, like what you just said, what God knows what's going to happen down the road. And so we think about it from that perspective. So today, whatever God brings before us in 6 months, he already knows how that ends. And so whatever he's asking us to do today, it's because of the 6 month mark, right? It's because of what's going to happen in 6 months. So if we keep that on the front of our mind, that whatever I do today, it will be reflected in the next 6 months. I would think that would keep you moving forward in the right direction and listening to God, right?
and
But I think that you were saying one of the things that you said was that, you ask God every step of the way, like, is this really you? Is this what you want? But a lot of people find it hard, very, very hard to do that. And a lot of people, what I'm seeing across social media and on the internet, a lot of people think that it's easy, that it should be easy if it's God, that it should be a cakewalk if it's God, and so if God has opened the door, then you shouldn't have any struggles and you should have all the money. Most people think it shouldn't be. Why would I go down to an internship level? No, I should be able to increase, right? So
right.
what would you say what would you say about that?
I would say, Jesus was told that he was the Son of God. Like, we knew he was the Son of God. And he knew what was going to happen at the end. He knew that he was going to give us all eternal life through his death. But he never, I don't know if he imagined, right, that this is what the struggle would have been like in between. And because there has to be a road to the purpose. And so I think for us, it's the same way, right? It's like there is an end goal that God wants us to get to, but if he just gave it to us, would we appreciate the struggle and the road to get there? We would just be like, well, I got it because it just happened, versus saying, this is the struggle that I went through for a purpose at the end. And so I think that that really plays a big role, is that we have to understand it's not about the end goal. It's really about the journey. And I heard this, through a preacher once. She actually, I think Charlotte Gamble said it. She goes, Um, Everyone always says when one door closes, another door opens, but nobody tells you that the hallway feels like hell in between, right? It's like, because it's a lot of times it's dark and it's lonely, and you're really trying to figure out your way to that next door. And so it's just like, the positive aspect is to know, like, just like Jesus had an end goal in mind and he knew what was going to happen at the end, that in between of like what he went through with the Pharisees and, people attacking him and verbally like just kicking him out of towns and just not getting the love that he was so willing to express to everyone else. At the end of the day, like that was like the path to allow us to know that God will call us to a goal and to a purpose. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy, but it will be worth it at the end.
Amen. Exactly. And see, and I think that the main thing too is that we are what our priorities are behind it, or even our purpose behind it. Are we doing what we're doing because of self, or are we doing it because of God? Are we doing it to further the kingdom? Are we doing it because this is something that God has placed on our hearts? Or are we just doing it because it makes me feel good in the moment?
Right.
Um, so I'm looking at the time, and I know we had a little time has been going by really, really fast today.
When you have fun, it goes by fast.
So we are at time. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, and we didn't even get into the things that I really wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about more. So you're gonna have to come back whenever you have time. But
Sure.
so what would you say, what would how would you say that you are living purpose? How would you say that you feel that you are living purpose?
So I think I'm living purpose because I know that my calling is in the marketplace, and I know that I'm meant to like really influence and impact people's lives and bring things together. And so I think I am mindful about that in the choices that I make and where I go and what I devote my time to, is that I know that it's in the marketplace. And so, therefore, I really do want to affect people, and how they live their life, and being able to really be that light to people in the marketplace. And I know that we've shared this before. Sometimes we're in roles that we cannot verbally say, oh, I'm a Christian and, I love Jesus and this is my God. But I do believe that our actions also speak louder than our words. And so because of that, I believe that, like, my purpose is really fulfilled being in that marketplace and being the voice of Jesus, and being that light to people where it may not be there at all.
And two, we need people like you because, well, where there is light, there is no darkness. And then also, we people need to see us represented in every aspect of life. We talk about marketplace ministry. I think this is the thing, it's the word or the phrase of the hour. But marketplace ministry is so important. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be preaching. It doesn't have to be reading the Bible, to every single person you come across, but just really just living out who Christ has called us to be. And so that people can see it exemplified, or, in front of them, see
Exactly.
that example in front of them.
Exactly.
So what would you tell the person who, well, there's a couple of things I'd like for you to kind of say in this last minute, but one, what would you tell the person who maybe is in the corporate arena, and they want to be more, more of a show more of their faith and not hide it as much, and then also the person who maybe they are in corporate and they feel that God is calling them to start a business as well, because those are two things I think that you show very well. And then finally, if you have any contact information or anything that you have coming up that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so afterwards.
Absolutely. So I think your first question was about, if you're in the corporate world, right? What are best ways or best practices, right, to be able to should be able to share your faith or be you? And I would say be your authentic self. That's number one, and understand that our actions definitely sometimes speak louder than the words, because you can profess that you're a Christian, but if our actions don't line up to it, we're doing a disservice to who we are and our faith. And so sometimes it's really about taking the step back, really listening to people, being able to be there, being mindful of how we react. when things are not going our way. So sometimes it's easy to react in a stressful situation, and our words are not as seasoned as it should be, to say the least. But can we be pure agents of awareness, right? So when we do things that are wrong, are we able to call that person back and say, hey, I'm really sorry about my behavior? That really shows, like, oh, this person is kind of different, that they are self aware. Can we be mindful of when we're at the water cooler and not being lured in to actually the gossip that sometimes happens, or the talking about people that sometimes will happen? I think those are things that we can do that really sort of sets us apart, and people begin to like really trust us and see the light that we're trying to bring around the workplace that we live in. So I think that those are some kind of tools of the trade, that I try my best. I fail a lot, but at least I try my best to really be that person in the marketplace that wants to be different and voices a different type of aura. I think secondly, to answer your question about for people who want to step out, they want to step out and maybe start a business. I will tell you, like, definitely make sure that you have the word that God has given you to hold and ground yourself on, because it is tough. I did it. I stepped out, and the Lord asked me to step out, and I was holding on to the words that the Lord gave me and the verses in the Bible, right? That really ground you, because we have to take it back to the word, because then we can always turn back to the word and say, Lord, like, this is the verse I'm holding myself to, because I know you told me that. And I stepped out, and it was really nerve wracking. I did it for a while until the Lord was like, okay, like, I got you to do what I needed you to do. Now it's moving on to the next phase. But really anchoring on that and understanding and level setting, right? That sometimes things are not perfect, right? We're not going to be millionaires like in a year, or maybe you will be, but I believe that in faith, right? But that things aren't always going to be so perfect, but understand that there is a journey. And if God is reconfirming, and sometimes we need that, right? That Lord, that there is a reconfirmation that I need, because this is where you're asking me to go, and really bringing the right people around you that will be truthful and give you really good advice along your journey, so that they can pray, they could counsel as well along the way, is really key. But don't be afraid to step out for what God is asking you to do, because that step out could be the biggest leap to the future of your destiny.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. And do you have any, can you let our audience know where they can reach you or connect with you?
So you can totally reach me out on Instagram. My handle is Sony Styles. So SONISTYLEZ, as in zebra. And or on LinkedIn, you can find me under Sonia Thomas.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you, and I was not kidding. I'll have to bring you back because there's so much more I'd like to talk about. I like to get in depth. So there's like, I want to go a little bit deeper. I don't want to keep it too surface. And I'm sure that our audience would love to know more and hear more from you. But you've been such a blessing and such an inspiration. I thank you again for coming on today.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, KM. It's been fun, and it's been great to like share stories and really just talk about what God is doing. And I have a lot more. So I'm sure I'll be ready the next session.
All right. Well, we'll say goodbye for now to our audience. And thank you again for joining. Talk to you soon.
Bye, audience.